We got one that is real high on my request list, and I've been avoiding it for a long time for various reasons. This is the original Combat Commander Europe. My history with this is I played it a couple of scenarios of it once. Trying to think. I don't remember if it was at the gaming club or like one of the first year I was at CSWE. There was a guy from Phoenix, him and his, I think it was at the convention actually. He showed up at both, him and his grandson. And he had me play the Pacific. We played a couple of things. We played Wilderness War, and we played Combat Commander Pacific. And I had a really good time with the game. Enough so that I said, okay, I'm going to buy. And when I saw Combat Commander, a used copy for sale, I picked it up. Unfortunately, that may not have been the wisest choice. I don't know. It included one of the battle packs or whatever, and I continued buying other stuff. I've got Fall of the West here. I may have Paratroopers somewhere. I seem to remember having it, but maybe I chose not to pick that one up. I picked up Mediterranean and Pacific as well. Pacific may still be in shrink. That's an oddity for me. But because I knew I enjoyed playing the game, and I thought it would be something cool for my wife and I to do. But I know I tried to break it out with her once, and because things were in the counter tray, or counter trays, and they had gotten shaken up and whatever, I had a hard time finding the pieces, and I don't think I really read the rules or anything, and I really couldn't get started with it. And so it became sort of this bugaboo where I didn't really want to present it, and I kind of wanted to play it opposed rather than solo. It's a CDG, sure, CDGs can be played opposed or solo, sure, it's kind of hard to have to play without the knowledge of the opponent's hand, but I do that well enough in a lot of games. However, it just kept getting put off, and I think becoming more and more of a kind of like with what did I just do? Bloody April. More and more of a I don't want to tackle it, whatever. And I had the same sort of feelings about it, which is one of the reasons that I kept kicking the can down the road. Well, we're going to play it this time. I don't know how much I'm going to play of it, because again, it's really not that much of a solo game. There's no campaign that I'm aware of in it, so you're just playing. It's like playing a squad leader battle or something like that. It's a nice short little thing, and you get to do stuff, but I don't know if it really suits my style, and without my wife around, I don't know if I would have picked it up, right? Part of it was we were really like doing a lot of gaming at that time, and I thought she'd get a kick out of this one. However, I wasn't able to face the rules at first. They are a little different. I know they're really well regarded. Now, this is version 1.1. When I bought this, whoever I bought it from had printed out a bunch of FAQ here that has a errata in here. I don't know. I don't know how they don't appear to be that big a factor. They do actually separate the errata from the clarifications and whatnot. We'll see what I get there. But anyhow, the appeal of it as a game sort of faded away when I didn't have anybody to play with anymore. Because my goal was to play it opposed and do the video coverage, both. But I figure, it's so highly rated and it shouldn't be too heavy a task. I have read the rules while I was playing whatever the fuck that was. Empires and Alliances down there, World War One, the worst World War One grand strategic game I've played. Maybe the worst World War One game I've played. I don't know. Bloody April's worse. I had less fun with that. But anyway, we'll leave that behind. So, I haven't set up yet because the scenario actually uses hidden setup for both players, and I want to have a feel, but I have set up all the tracks and everything to what I can. And then we come to this. A huge amount of glossary material, which I'm definitely not going to go through. Most of it is recognizable. Does this have something like SRS? No, SSR. That was a game. The Bloody April had SSR in it all over the place because it's scenario special rules. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. It's nice to have an official glossary if you need to look things up. There's also a lot of the game that, a lot of the rule book, and it's not a huge rule book, right? Nice index too. What are we looking at? 23 pages. Kind of tight, but and unfortunately glossy. But what was I going to say? Yeah, a fair amount of the rule book is things that you're not going to need in most scenarios. Kind of like ASL. There's a lot in that rule book that you only need every now and then. There's things here that might be generated by cards and whatnot, and you don't really have to worry too much, so we'll skip over a lot of that. There is a nice little disclaimer here that the designer totally is saying, don't infer stuff from the rules. I've written these exactly how I mean them. And that's kind of an interesting thing to say. It's largely what I'd assume, but it's a level of confidence that I've put these rules through enough testing and whatnot that they're solid. And I believe him in that because it does have a really good reputation for the rules. Like I said, they did cause me a bit of stress, but I think I was trying to play without reading the rules too heavily, thinking that I remembered the game from a couple of years back and could just do it. And yeah, it wasn't that easy. Okay, so let's talk a little about components, working our way through. Each player, each side has their own deck of cards. And those cards, it's not your standard CDG, okay? Those cards have a number of different sections that they're used for. So order or action are things that you choose to do. Order is something you choose to do on your turn. Action, something you can choose to do kind of at any time as a reaction perhaps, or also in your own turn. But then here we have another action available. An event, these only happen if an event is randomized. This little thing, which is one of the forms of randomization here, the actual number of the card, and then a die roll. And the die roll might generate something else random, like this would generate an event if it's drawn as a die roll in most circumstances. There might be some exceptions, which are called out in the rules. Now, you can't just substitute a set of dice for the cards. So you have to play with the die rolls on the cards. There are some games where they put die rolls on cards, but you can kind of fudge around it. But because there's specific other things that can be triggered, call them special events or whatever, but they're not all events as the game takes it. You actually have to deal with this. So you have to deal with the sort of non-randomization or more limited randomization that a deck of cards provides, where you could conceivably be counting cards and doing weird shit like that. I'm sure as hell never going to do that. Okay. Golden rule. The cards take precedence over the rules. You have a specific hand size in the game based on the stance that your troops are coming forward in. It can range between 4 and 6. The cards in your own hand are your own secret, but your discard pile is public knowledge. So, and this has come to be important in some games. So, for example, in Blue Max, I believe that has chits, not cards. I'm trying to remember. There was something where, like, oh, Down in Flames. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking Blue Max. In Down in Flames, there are like a very limited number of cards that will hit the enemy and just kill them on like a one shot or something like that. And knowing that those are gone can be a big factor in play. I don't think that's going to be as big a deal in this. I don't think there are any truly significant individual cards, but we'll see. When you have to reveal a card during an event trigger, you flip the card over and you take whatever instructions are there. Whenever the game time advances, that player will have to shuffle their deck, both discard and draw, together to form a new draw pile. It may be, I think if you run out of cards, that causes a game time advance, but you're more likely to cause it through play. Okay. Some of the cards are orders. You can only play one card for its order during your own turn and can never announce more orders in a turn than your order capability. That seems to be, maybe there's two different definitions to turn here. I'm not sure, but that feels like there's something being said wrong there. And already, right away, I'm like hitting this and saying, that doesn't really make sense. We'll see when we get to 5.1 where this is discussed. If a card is played for an order, it's placed into the discard pile. The action on that card then cannot be played until you get that card again. Actions are listed just below the photo, or in the case of opportunity fire across the top. We actually had a fire that said order action on it. Oh, no. That's the type of order it is. Unfortunately, they use the word action to mean two things here. Right? Actions, okay. The ability listed below the photo on every fate card and above in the case of fire order action. Okay, no, it could be used as either. All right, this is the type of order. Let me see what this top one was. I cut the deck and pulled one, didn't I? I'm going to have to reshuffle this. Here we go. Order action. Yeah, see, this is an order or an action. Okay. And fire is the type of order and action that it could be played as. Events are listed below. Those are going to be drawn. Random hexes. This is going to determine where something happens. The die rolls. We've already talked about all this, looking at them, and I'm delaying here. Die triggers. Many die rolls are enclosed with a thick red box, and this is like the event that was there. There are 4 different types: event, jammed, sniper, or time. Any non-time trigger that occurs via the last card of your draw pile is resolved after the time marker advancement. Yeah, so when you run out of your draw pile, you get a time advancement. I thought so. And any roll made while resolving a trigger or a melee roll during melee at the end of an infiltration event cannot itself produce a die trigger. That's kind of an important thing to remember. So if you make a die roll during a trigger, you ignore the red stuff that happens. Each of the 4 triggers explained below are always performed in their entirety before the results of the die roll that triggered them is implemented. Okay. The event, when you make a die roll that's surrounded with an event, the normal gameplay pauses, you flip another card and take that event into place. When you make a fire attack roll only, nothing else will cause this, and you get it jammed, and now we've got some weird stuff here. Only no other die roll will trigger jammed, including targeting. You know, me seeing targeting in there, that's going to cause possibilities of me misreading this and doing the exact opposite. I see that in my head. If it didn't have that parentheses after it, I would be just fine, and I would never think about targeting, even though I can see why some people might. Anyway, if it's got the word jammed on it, all the firing weapons become broken. Now, I haven't talked about the counters yet. A weapon, when it breaks, flips over like this, and then it gives the chances to fix it. Individual people, we'll talk about those in a bit as we hit them. You have individuals, and you also have kind of squad-like units, or whatever. More than one person. It's not always a squad. It can break down as little as 2. I've got to swap batteries. Nice foggy day. I just wanted to catch that. That I haven't given my standard disclaimer here yet. A game like this, there are going to be a lot of how to play videos out there. If you haven't realized it by now, this is not the how to play video you want to use to learn the game by. This is more of a context video to give you a chance to see where I'm coming at from the game, and you might catch where I get, you know, maybe some misconceptions or whatever. It's also very helpful to me in learning the rules. I've read them already, but they haven't stuck very well. I didn't feel like I could play right away or anything, but I do find that after reading through aloud a second time, skimming through and giving this kind of explanation, it does help me. I brought up that, like, I don't know how valuable they are. In some cases, I don't need to do them, but those are the games where I'm probably in the better shape to do them. In other cases, I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. I feel like it's a useful context to looking at the exploration of the game, which is what I'm doing. Okay. We talked about the jam trigger, sniper trigger. Whenever you make a die roll that causes a sniper, normal gameplay is paused and you resolve that sniper. You reveal the top card, ignore everything except the random hex, and then you may select one unit in or adjacent to that hex and break it. Now this is, you know, take it exactly as it is. You may, but it could be your own unit if you want, for example. I don't know why you'd want to. Time trigger, whenever a player makes a die roll and that roll is surrounded by time, the normal gameplay pauses in order to do the time marker advancement process. There are a bunch of different maps. They can actually link together, I think, in some cases. Specific type of terrain is on them. The white centered dots, these are for determining line of sight. Each hex has its own letter number combination. Something I did not realize, but there's a number up here that indicates which scenario it's in. Now, maps might get reused in certain places, but I think, I don't know. I won't say anything. There's a compass showing the orientation of the hexes in case you need a die roll or something like that to indicate which direction to go in. Artillery strikes use it. There are artillery boxes, which the two players will be using to indicate their radio status for getting artillery calls in. The maps also have numbers on them. These are your objective hexes. You don't know by the scenario itself what objectives you have. Those are going to be reflected here. So each player has a hidden objective in this one, but then there's also this core objective, which the letter A just, it corresponds with on the back of the initiative table how much the objective is worth. This is kind of useful if you want to see the spread of them. But I don't really think that matters much. But this is saying that objective number 1 here is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. Now, each player has their own hidden objective. So here we have the Germans know that objective 5 here is worth 5 points to them. And the Russians, I'm going to be playing Germans versus Russians here, have objective 4 is worth 3 points, which is over here. Now, it's kind of an interesting situation because most of the stuff is over here in this scenario. The Russians have more troops. I think they're going to want to split their forces, whereas the Germans, seeing their big 5-point objective and the extra objective point here, are going to try to focus on the area that's close to them. They do have set up on basically to the corners of the map in this particular scenario. We'll look at that more as we hit into the scenario, but I just wanted to show you that you've got this kind of randomization. Even though you've got a scenario that you're faced with, you don't necessarily know what's of importance in it. The cards can also bring additional objectives into play. All right, the units themselves, we got a bunch of different stuff. We have names. This is kind of problematic because when you look here as what you got to look for a specific name. And basically there's a bunch of different named people. So you have to kind of skim around and look for the actual individual you have. Because I'm guessing nobody has the same values across the board. You have the number, okay, you have the name, which might not be the specific name of someone. It might be the type of unit. So these are riflemen. It's like a little squad of riflemen. All right. The morale value is the upper right. I think high is good. It's what you use against a fire attack or when attempting to recover. Route. I think high is good. You have their rank here, just as a little image. Doesn't really help much. Command. If you're a leader unit, that's your command value, which is, I think, how many units you can throw in to a particular order if the leader gives it. Also op fire. And it also can give stat bonuses to units under your command. Then we have across the bottom the firepower, which is going to be the base strength when you're generating an attack with their normal weapon. The range, how far away, how many hexes away they can fire at. And then their movement allowance, which is going to be pretty standard in movement points. If a stat is boxed, they're going to allow certain types of actions to be done for the most part. They give you certain additional capabilities. A boxed firepower gives +1 strength in melee, indicating that you have a smaller weapon or something, or something that's good at putting out a lot of bullets. I'm guessing, well, a machine gun has a boxed firepower. Cool. Is the heavy machine gun too? It does. Oh no, that's a light. They're both light. Yeah, the heavy machine gun does not have a boxed firepower, so it's not going to be as good in melee. But the light machine gun, you know, if somebody can Rambo with it or whatever, I don't know. All right. When units are broken, they're flipped over. There's a red band for it. They're going to have different stats for that. Units switching from broken or unbroken retain control of suppressed veteran and weapon markers. You have attached weapons. A unit can carry a weapon. Whether or not the unit is broken doesn't affect the weapon breaking, nor vice versa. A broken unit that breaks again is eliminated, and it is going to be placed on the casualty track up here. You take a certain number of casualties, I think you surrender. And I think I've got those in the right, yeah, I know I have those in the right place. I looked it up. And it's also going to count for points for the battle as well. Probably. When a broken unit is instructed to rally, it flips back over to its unbroken side. This is usually during a recover order or due to an event. Leaders. All right. Now, in this particular scenario, both sides, I think, no, the Germans only have one leader. I've made a mess already. No, the Germans have two leaders, yeah. Both sides have two leaders, even though the Russians have a larger force to lead. An order or op-fire action will only activate a single unit, but if a leader is activated, he has the ability to further activate all, some, or none of his friendly non-leader units within his command radius. The command radius is counted in hexes radiating outward from the leader's hex. So maybe it's not the number of units, it's the range. Yeah. A leader with 2 command can activate friendly units with up to 2 hexes away. I was wrong about that. A leader's command number is also added directly to the firepower, range, movement, and morale of all friendly squads and teams, as long as those units are in the same hex with the leader, even if the leader himself is not activated. This is cumulative with multiple leaders in a hex, but they don't affect the leader. A leader's command number is also added to the firepower and range of every friendly weapon that does not have a white band. I don't know what the white bands are. I think they're more artillery-type weapons that you might have. That's being carried by a non-leader unit so long as that unit is in the same hex as the leader. Even if the leader himself is not activated, this is cumulative if 2 or more leaders occupy the same hex. Yeah, mortar has a white band, so it can't. Boy. I'm going to pause. I need a break. And that means tweezers, which I didn't think I was going to use for this, I'll use as bookmarks, which I like to do with them. And just to, I just need to get away for a while. I don't know. It's later than I thought. It's already foggy again and dark. Like 4 p.m. It is the new year. It has been all video, but I just thought I'd point that out. So we got various tracks over here. First one is the victory point track. And this thing flips over if you're over 20. Total. I think you track everything that causes victory points on that. There's the attack total marker, which I think can be used kind of anywhere you like. I got to kick it around here. It could be used here. It could be used up here, whatever. I don't know. Whatever's convenient. There's no particular location to use it on. The casualty track, that's this. Any damaged weapons go here. They're not going to count towards surrender. You start with surrender markers there, and each player, you know, when they lose units, they fill in the spots in there. And not heroes. Heroes can die without hurting you. And you put 1 per space. You lose if one of your units ends up being placed on the surrender marker. Basically, you're no longer capable. I guess it's possible 2 people could be placed there at the same time. I think there was some kind of note about that. Anyway. We have the OB display here. This is going to be used to mark the quality of the units and the number of orders that they're allowed in this particular scenario. Both sides are line units with 2 and 3 orders. 3 orders is kind of necessary. The Russians have a bigger force there. The date of the scenario, we got the year. That might affect some things. I don't know what. The objective box, this is where you keep the public objectives as well as the private ones. 7 data boxes, allowing you to see special rules for fortifications and weapons. Just sort of a player aid type thing. We do have some additional player aids. By the way, mine came with 3 extra decks. I don't know if the guy who bought it ordered extra decks thinking, yeah, I'll play this a lot and run out of them. Don't think he had these sleeved, but I may have taken them out. This is sleeved. And these guys are in good shape, so either didn't play a whole hell of a lot, or I mean they're decent quality cards, so you know, like anything modern. Yeah, I don't know if he ordered extra or if they just come with extra. Maybe it tells me here. I can't imagine. Say 220 playing cards. That sounds like one set. Because there's a decent amount in each deck. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I have excess cards if I decide I need them. What do we got here? Where were we? Oh, we just flipped. Okay. Sequence of play. Oh, so in addition, we got a couple of these. Let's take a look at what we got. A whole bunch. So some of these are scenario cards. There are equivalents in the playbook. But this gives the terrain effects chart. Nothing on the other side. And this gives some other information. These may be printed out. I'm not sure. They're different material than those are, but maybe about the same as this. I suspect these came with it. Again, I could look to see, but okay. A game begins with 1 or more players performing the first turn. See, this is again the weird thing. There was something weird about turn here, wasn't there? Trying to remember what the fuck I saw. A player can only play a card for its order during his own turn and may never announce more orders in a turn than his order capacity. Oh, maybe you're allowed to play 2 or 3 orders per turn in this scenario. That makes sense. I just misread it. I thought it limited you to 1 on your own turn. Okay. You draw your hand size based on the type of mission you're doing, and then the opposing player takes his first turn. These turns are then alternated until a sudden death roll or other occurrence ends the game. You perform 1 or more orders by playing cards, or you can discard any number of your cards to regenerate. This is important because sometimes you'll have cards that just don't do what you need to do, and you would rather refresh your hand than play the few cards that you're allowed to play. You can't give an order without play of a card from your hand. You have a maximum number of orders per turn on your OB. They don't need to be pre-designated. They're played from the hand and then executed one at a time. Actions, no player can announce an action without the play of a card, but these can be played whenever you deem appropriate, as long as the prerequisites are in play for them. And this is, again, going to have a whole list of different orders and actions and how they work out. The orders we probably have to go through, but the actions, I think there's a relatively large number of. You can discard as many cards as you like. No, not exceeding the discard capability of the nation you're commanding, showing on the player aid sheet. Okay, well, here we go. That's how many cards you can discard. So the Germans can discard their entire hand. The Russians can only discard 3 cards, which is less than their entire hand no matter what. The smallest hands are 4. I think we're going to be at 5 for each, because it's like a meeting engagement type thing. Both sides are reconning. All right. The time marker, each scenario indicates which space on the time track it's marked, usually 0. It's advanced 1 space forward whenever a time trigger is rolled, or whenever you hit the end of your draw, the last card of your draw pile, which will cause the equivalent to a time trigger. Now, if your last card is also a time trigger card, or results in a time trigger card, you do not advance again. But that's only if that last card is revealed as a die roll. This is one specific little thing. So it's possible you could advance twice in one turn, as far as I see. Normal play pauses on a time marker increase, so you can do the following. The person triggering the time advance shuffles his deck and discard together to form a new draw pile. He makes a sudden death roll if necessary. Then if the game didn't end, the defender, if there is one, gains a victory point. The triggering player has to remove a smoke marker from the map. I haven't explained that, but I got 2 cups here. One is the objectives to randomly draw from them. The other is the smoke markers. Now these have blazes on one side and smoke with a value on the other. That value is just how much of a visual impairment that the smoke provides. Oh, where the hell am I? If there are 1 more units in the space now occupied by the time marker, I don't know why they're... Oh, these are reinforcements. They get brought into play as reinforcements, placing them in the hexes on your friendly board edge. Inactive player first. Stacking limits must be observed. Any reinforcement radio is put in the player's artillery box. Then both players are allowed to play dig-in actions at this moment. Sudden death marker. It starts on a specific spot in each scenario. Looking there, I've got it on turn 7, or time 7. Whenever the time marker advances in or beyond the sudden death marker, the triggered player must make a roll, which is draw a card. This is done after that player shuffles his fate deck and discard pile together to form a new draw pile. If it's less than the number in the space currently occupied by the time marker, not the sudden death marker itself, the game immediately ends. Otherwise, play proceeds as normal. When the game can end in one of 4 ways. If you're forced to place an eliminated unit on the casualty track on your surrender, if your last unit on the map is eliminated, this can be kind of painful because there are reasons you want to exit units from the map, but that usually generates more reinforcements for you as well, which was something I immediately had to look up. If your last unit on the map voluntarily exits the map, if a sudden death roll is made that's less than the number of the space on the time marker. On the first or second situation, which is you surrendered or you're out of units, that player immediately and automatically loses the game regardless of their victory point total. If they simultaneously lose in this manner, the player holding initiative card wins the game. This is going to be used kind of like the China card in Twilight Struggle. You pass it back and forth for an advantage. But it gives you the tiebreaker and a win. If the third or fourth situation above occurs and the first 2 situations do not apply, I am kind of wondering about this, but you either exit or you're eliminated, so yeah. The players must reveal any secret objective chits and award their victory points to the current controller. Then the player who has the highest victory point total wins the game. If it's on 0, whoever has initiative wins the game. And the victory conditions: elimination of enemy units counts, exiting friendly units off the opponent's map edge counts, control of map board objective counts. When you eliminate a unit, you get victory points. Squads are worth 2. Okay, they are squads. Teams, which I think are 2-man groups, are worth 1. A leader, but not a hero, is worth 1 victory point plus 1 for each command on its unbroken side, but a hero is worth nothing. Heroes are there to die. By the way, they actually kind of don't count. They just spawn out of a unit. Like if you have a squad, I think the leader just can, the hero just is created in it, and the rest of the squad still exists and has as much firepower and everything. I guess they're more motivated seeing that hero. Each map is considered to have an impenetrable barrier on the left and right. A unit can only exit off of the other map edges. The edge nearest the player can be exited by units in play, as if the dark gray border were another hex. You can do this using move or advance orders, which can gain you victory points going off the enemy side. But if you retreat off your own side during a route order or a forced retreat, you lose victory points. In advancing or moving, you can exit the map. It costs 1 off the opponent's side. The owning player is given exit victory points for the unit, which I say 7.1. These values are also shown on the play rate. No, that doesn't help. Yeah, I mean, I guess exiting a squad gives you 2. I don't know. The unit is then placed in any space on the time track the owning player wishes. A unit is always placed on the time track unbroken, even if it was broken as it exited. Remember what I said. If you put it on if it's on the time track, it comes in as a reinforcement. If you exit units off the board, you got reinforcements. Yeah, you can put it a turn in the future or whatever, and then the next time the thing marks, you're able to bring that unit on. You could put it behind the time track, saying I don't want reinforcements, maybe because you want to exit more units or something, end the game quicker, because it doesn't forbid that, right? Yeah, any place you wish. Involuntary exit. A retreating unit can be forced off the map on its own friendly, being eliminated in the process. Such a unit is placed on the next empty space on the casualty track after awarding the opponent elimination victory points. See, this is weird. This talks about exit victory points and refers me to here. And not to 7.1. All right. This just feels wrong to me. So we are looking, well, it's not in my clarifications nor errata. And we are in Combat Commander Europe. Now they say new official errata. I don't know if that makes something different. Check here. Elimination victory points. That doesn't help. I don't know. I'm guessing you get the same victory points that you get for elimination, but again, hey, this is a weakness in the rules already. The only reason I'm bringing it up is that this gets touted as being a fantastic set of rules. And maybe it's been corrected. But it was being touted back in the day. The objective, what do we got here? The eliminated unit does not retain possession of its weapon, which is placed unbroken in the weapons section of the casualty track, nor does it retain any veteran or suppressed. If we look at voluntary exit, the unit is always placed on the time unbroken, even if it was broken. It retains possession of any weapon it was carrying, again becoming unbroken if it was broken, but it loses veteran or suppressed markers that may have been attached. It's a new unit with the same equipment. The objectives can be worth 1 or more victory points depending on which chits are in play. Objectives are otherwise worth 0 victory points by default. There are little control markers that you use for the objectives during initial setup. Some may be in control of players. If it's a building that's multi-hex, you have to have been the last person to go through every hex of the building. There's 22 objective markers. They're usually drawn at random and used to get additional victory conditions in the scenario. Each objective chit drawn will show a condition on its open side. Most of these all have a secret side, and the scenario, like this one's set up with 1 open objective and a secret objective for each player. That can actually affect the balance a lot. For example, I feel like the Germans got a good draw with theirs compared to what the Russians got. Now, why do we have a letter on them? I don't know, again. Okay, immediately prior to each sudden death roll, if any player controls all 5 objectives, that player automatically wins the game regardless of current victory point totals. Which is weird, because if you wanted to exit the map with your units, you might be giving up the objectives for that, and that could be odd. Oh, no, this is from a chit. Yeah, so this sudden death win creates something. These are specific objectives. Victory points for exit is doubled for both players. Elimination is doubled for both players. These are chits that could come up, and I think these are always open. Open objective chits as well as, which means if somebody draws it, it goes into the open and they lose their secret objective because of it. Open objectives as well as secret ones that have been revealed during play should be placed in the open side in the objective box. Secret objectives should be kept face down. Only that player can look at them. Open ones award their VPs immediately during play of the game, whereas secret ones only award their points at the game end or when they're revealed. When an open objective changes ownership on the map, you first subtract the points that it was giving to one player and give it to the other. Do I want to deal with stacking? I think we can deal with stacking, then we stop. Stacking is enforced for all markers immediately after placement. There's no limit to the number of markers that may occupy a single location except as... Oh, sorry, that's marker stacking. But okay. Unit markers. Each unit in play can have a maximum of 1 of each of the following markers on it. Suppressed, veteran, weapon. A unit can only carry 1 weapon, but any. Radios, only 1 radio can be put in the artillery box for you. Fortifications, only 1 fortification can be in a single hex. The first one takes precedence, which means if you end up drawing something that allows you to build more fortifications that are better, you can't use them. But chances are all you get is foxholes or something like that, I think. Only 1 smoke can be in a hex. The one with the largest hindrance takes precedence, which means you draw more smoke and get a bigger one. Only 1 blaze can be in a given hex. No marker listed above and no unit can be there if it is. Unit stacking. This is important before I actually set up, and was the rule I didn't set up for because I wanted to read to it. Number of friendly units containing a total of up to 7 figures. And the number of figures is on the unit itself. Not some kind of number, you just have to count them. Can be stacked in a hex without penalty. Any hex containing friendly units with the total of 8 or more soldiers is a violation and is considered overstacked. Stacking is enforced at the end of every turn. That's a player's turn. At that time, the owning player must eliminate sufficient units in order to bring the hex found to be overstacked back into compliance. In each overstacked hex, a player may choose to perform up to one free deploy event immediately prior to eliminating the units in this manner. I didn't know that. That says E52. Okay. When this event occurs, the active player may... Okay, that allows you to break your unit down so that you can lose less figures. So if you're only like one over, you can break down into a couple of teams, a squad into a couple of teams, so you don't lose the whole squad. Oh, fair enough. All right, we were going to stop there and go to initiative. And... we'll pause for a bit. It's so astounding to me. It's like, 5 p.m. and it's almost dark, almost completely pitch dark out. I know, it's going to get lighter, but it just, between the switch between daylight savings and standard time, where I'm located is probably also a factor. Like, each time zone is quite large. So if you're on one end of a time zone, the days just, start earlier, end earlier, or whatever, no matter where you are. I think that's actually probably the bigger effect, although I am further north, obviously, than I was in Phoenix as well. So the days tended to be closer to the normal, to a standard length there, but didn't have to deal with daylight savings time. Always on standard time there. All right, anyway, initiative. The scenario indicates which side begins with initiative. Now they say when playing a pre-generated scenario, which leads me to believe that there's some sort of random scenario generation. I don't remember seeing it. There we go. That's why. I haven't read the design and playtest notes yet. Whatever. Fortification OBs. I guess this is for the scenario generator, or something. Anyway, a player's initiative number is listed within his side's purchase OB. In this case, the player with the higher initiative begins with the game with an initiative card. It's never part of your hand. It doesn't count against your limit size. During the game, you can pass the initiative card in order to re-roll any die roll, including the trigger associated with it, and cause it to be re-rolled. You have to make this before any effects are actually implemented, though. When you call for a re-roll, you give the initiative card, and then the other player controls it, unless he chooses to use it. This can occur as many times as you like, even in the same series of die rolls. If the game ends in a tie, the initiative card is the tiebreaker. Line of sight. All right. So you trace from the center dot to the center dot. And you worry about obstacles or hindrances, which can either block or hinder your line of sight. Hindrances are going to reduce your chance to hit or your firepower value, depending on the type of weapon involved. An obstacle just prevents it. LOS is always reciprocal. That's nice. There are some games where it doesn't work out that way, and I'm just so bothered by them. Units do not block or hinder a line of sight in any way. They're so small. Obstacles, any terrain with the symbol. Oh, where did I put the terrain effects chart? There it is. Looking to see if I see it. There we go. But we have an asterisk there. That asterisk is gotta be somewhere. I guess it's in the notes. Okay. Yeah. These have some special effects, and we have to look at those. But yeah, certain things block a unit in a. I would rather. I'm fine with them saying that, but I would rather they would actually tell me about them here. That's just me, but I know they do talk about the woods and the hex behind. A unit in one hex can't see a unit in another hex if that line of sight is blocked by an obstacle. Yeah. All right, a blaze marker fills the entirety of the hex, and if line of sight is traced through any portion of the blaze, it's blocked by that marker. You can't see through flame. I don't know why. Like, it seems kind of weird. Hindrances. Some terrain is too sparse or too low to be considered a complete obstacle, and then it's a hindrance. Let's see if we can find. We got some numbers here. Any accuracy or targeting line of sight traced through an intervening hindrance will have the roll decreased by an amount equal to the number listed in the terrain's line of sight column. If a radio or weapon hits, any subsequent artillery impact attack die rolls will be unaffected by the hindrance. Now, for normal fire attacks traced through hindrance, they have their firepower reduced by that hindrance value. However, a fire attack that would be reduced to 0 or less cannot even be made. You need at least a 1 in order for the fire attack roll to be made. Actions that increase a fire attack strength may be used in order to bring it up, though, like, sighting or whatever. Hindrances are not cumulative. The single largest modifier is used, and this modifier does not become greater if the number of hindrances between the sighting and target is greater than 1. Smoke markers they fill the entirety of the hex, and they provide a certain amount of hindrance based on them, and it can be pretty high. Smoke also hinders any line of sight traced into or out of it, not just through it like normal mapboard stuff. Weapons. As with units, a weapon has both a firepower and a range, sometimes boxed, and possibly a detrimental modifier in bold red. Over here, it's going to cost you to move. Or cost movement points to carry that thing. To the carrying unit's movement, whenever a unit is activated, any weapon it is carrying is activated along with it. Only an unbroken, unsuppressed unit can fire its weapon, and it may do so either separately or as part of a fire group. Each unit can carry one allotted weapon. The weapon is placed atop the unit. Any weapon acquired via the nation's support table must be given to the unit listed with that weapon. A weapon can be transferred to another unit via the expenditure of a movement point during a movement order. The weapon may be voluntarily eliminated by its current owner at any time. If a unit with a weapon is eliminated or exits the map, the weapon goes with it. A weapon being carried by a squad that deploys is given to one of the 2 replacing teams. Remember, deploying is breaking the unit in 2. When a weapon breaks, it's flipped over to its broken side. A broken weapon that breaks again is eliminated. Whenever a player checks a random hex, either via sniper or due to certain events, the hex number is compared to that on every broken weapon on play. This happens before the result of the event or sniper itself, If the weapon falls within the if the number falls within the weapon's fixed range, it's flipped back over to its unbroken side, available for immediate use. And if it falls within the weapon's eliminated range, it's eliminated and placed on the weapon space of the casualty track. Those numbers are present on the weapon itself. Otherwise, the weapon just remains broken. We have a bunch of examples of line of sight. I didn't find anything too confusing about them. Some weapons, those with a white bar behind their stats, like the two pictured here, are termed ordnance. Ordnance has to first get a hit via targeting before making a fire attack roll. It cannot participate in a fire group, and it cannot be used during opportunity fire. We have some specialized weapons. A flamethrower or Molotov cocktail automatically sets its target's cover to 0 with no modifications possible. A satchel charge or Molotov cocktail is a one-use weapon, and as such must be eliminated immediately after it makes its fire roll. Radios. Radios are markers representing off-board artillery batteries. Each has a fire value of between 8 and 13. If you acquire a radio, you put it in your artillery box up here. Both sides have one near them. You can only have one radio in play at a time. It's not actually a weapon. It has some special rules for it. Suppression, and we'll stop before we get to orders. A suppressed marker can be placed on a unit via the cower, interdiction, or suppressing fire events, or due to a tie result during a fire defense, rally, or route roll. I don't know what any of these things mean. We'll see. These are under orders. We're not going to worry too much about the events. But I don't think there are a hell of a lot of orders. There are a fair number. But they're kind of key to the game. Okay. Unit with a suppressed marker has -1 firepower, -1 range, -1 movement, and -1 morale. And they look like this. Weapons themselves cannot become suppressed, but a suppressed unit cannot fire any weapon it possesses, which is why it says no weapon there. A suppressed marker can only be removed at the beginning of a recover order, or if the unit is eliminated or exits the map. A suppressed squad that deploys gives suppression to only one of the two replacing teams, which seems a little weird. And I need to break again. Working our way slowly through. Alrighty. On orders. So, to give an order, the active player has to reveal a card from his hand and announce that he's performing the order listed on top. Cards placed on the discard pile. If that order activates something, he activates one player or friendly unit based on the order that has not yet been activated that turn. I don't know how you mark that something's been activated. That's wires and trenches and stuff. More of those kind of things. It's weird, I pulled some of the counters out of that type, but not all of them. But okay. Yeah. Well, a turn, again, is one player's set of orders, so I guess you can keep that in mind pretty easily. If a leader is activated in this manner, he can in turn activate all, some, or none of the friendly non-leader units. But again, that counts as, their activation for that turn. None of which can be previously activated that turn. All units to be activated for an order must be identified before the order is carried out. You have to play a card to do an order. This was the joke. that was pretty common. What, I need a card to shoot you? Kind of thing, you know. An announced order has to be performed in its entirety before you do the next one. This includes any actions that requiring that order to be in effect. Any number of actions can be announced by either player during an order as long as the prerequisites are met. Once an order is given, at least one of the units activated for the order has to physically carry it out. You can give the orders to other pieces, but the key here is you can't get rid of a card that you don't want to use by playing the order. You have to do that order somehow. The only way you get rid of your cards without doing an order is this discard, where you can throw any number of cards up to your discard limit, and then you get a draw at the end of the turn. Okay, so given orders, advance. This allows you to enter one of the 6 hexes adjacent to the one you occupy, but then you have to stop. This allows you to enter an enemy-occupied hex. There are no movement points for this. You can't go over impassable terrain if there is any. I don't think there is in this scenario. You're able to enter an enemy-occupied hex, exit off the game board, or even cross a cliff hex side. Oh, if you're not carrying a weapon. Cliffs, I think, are impassable. Are they the only impassable? No, there's these barriers here. Cliff looks like this. It's impassable, has 2 stars. Unit without a weapon may advance across, so it gives you the information you need there. The next order is melee. This is really weird. So advance is 016. Yeah, this is all part of advance. Okay. Melee, at the end of an order or die trigger that causes a hex to contain units from both sides, a melee ensues. If there's more than one hex with a melee, the active player decides which order. The melee strength. First, if there are any ambush actions, they take place, but then you add up your firepower for each of your remaining units, but not weapons, and add 1 for each of those units with a boxed firepower to arrive at this melee firepower. Now, this is a little weird because didn't I have a boxed firepower on that light weapon? Yeah, and I think that the bonus for that, I thought, was that well, one of the bonuses is that it increases firepower. Boxes also do something else, and I can't remember. This is, I don't know, where were boxed stuff? Box stats, the exception of boxed FP. Some units have, okay, so that would give a special bonus. But the +1 strength in melee isn't going to matter for that because it's a weapon. So my thought there does not apply. I'm guessing. Because what it says is add up the current FP for each of his remaining units, dash not weapons, dash in the melee hex, then adds +1 for each of those units with a boxed FP, which might mean that I can get that +1, but not the rest of the weapons value. It says exactly as written. It's not clear how that's written, to tell you the truth. So we're at 01641. I mean, I'm assuming not. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here. I got a 16 there, but it's not that. It's broken up into so many different things. I kind of wish, I don't know. All right. The inactive player then makes, the active player, both players add up. The inactive player then makes a die roll. I don't remember what kind of dice there are in this game. they 6s or 10s? I don't have them. I probably removed them. Oh, no. There aren't any. It's a card. Yeah. Okay. I hate being told to make a die roll and it's a card. That confuses me. You make a die roll and add it to your melee firepower to get your melee total, and then the active player also gets a die roll and adds it to his melee to get his total. These rolls are done in order to facilitate the triggers and possible use of the initiative card after each one, so the actual ordering is important. If due to a trigger during a melee, one or both sides have no units in the hex, the melee ends with no further effect. Otherwise, the side with the lower morale total has all of its participating units eliminated. In a tie, both sides are eliminated unless one player began the melee in a bunker or pillbox, in which case only the other side is eliminated. Now they talk here, it can be an advantage to overstack when advancing into a melee in order to have a better chance of winning, even though you will likely lose units due to overstacking at the end of the turn. Okay. The next order is artillery denied. When an artillery denied order is given, the player simply causes his opponent's radio to break, and if it's already broken, eliminated. Nothing's activated, you're just getting rid of his contact. Artillery request. When you give this order, you must choose to perform one of either battery access or fire for effect. Battery access may only be chosen if you have a broken radio in play. Fire for effect may only be chosen if you have both an unbroken radio and an unbroken leader in play that has yet to be activated this turn. If neither of these conditions exist, the order can't be given. Battery access, you're going to be fixing your broken radio with this. Fire for effect, you activate one of your unbroken leaders only. This leader will act as the spotter for the bombardment. And then there's 3 steps: spotting, accuracy, and impact. Spotting, you put a spotting round, which I guess looks like that, in any hex within line of sight of the spotter. This will indicate the hex that will be in the intended center of the artillery bombardment. This can be an impassable hex, like a blaze or a water barrier. Most radios are able to place smoke in the targeted hexes instead of making impact rolls. This ability is available to any radio with the word smoke on the right side of the radio illustration. If the active player wishes to play smoke, he has to announce this now prior to making accuracy. Once the SR is placed, make a normal targeting roll using the range between the spotter and the SR's current hex. This roll is modified by any hindrances as normal. And, you know, it's saying these things as normal and whatnot. These are rules that haven't come up yet. Yes, it's giving references into them, but something about the conversational style just bothers me. It feels like, oh, I should know that already. As opposed to C. Like, instead of as usual, it should say C, I think. Otherwise, it confuses me. If the targeting roll gets a hit, the artillery is accurate. Reveal the top card of the fate deck and ignore everything. It's your only deck. And ignore everything but the 2 dice. Now, this is not a roll, so no die triggers. Yeah, I'm pulling and looking at the dice, but it's not a roll. Using the hex compass on the map, each die will give the direction in which the SR will air. The SR moves 1 hex in the white die's direction, then it moves 1 hex in the colored die's direction. We use this thing. It could end up in the same hex that way, and thus be on target. Given that this is a hit, only have a 1 in 6 chance of hitting the location. If you roll a miss, the artillery is inaccurate. Reveal the top card of the fate deck and ignore everything but the 2 dice. Using the hex compass on the map, the first die gives the direction, and the second die is the distance. This could They say, yes, this could bring it back on your own troops. Yeah, it could also knock it off map, in which case, if it ever airs off map, even briefly, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. It's removed. Oh, if you move one hex off and then maybe back, you've moved off map, you fail. So firing at the edge of the map reduces your chances of being successful. ASR can occupy an otherwise impassable hex. Yeah. We got to do impact. I'm almost out of battery here, unfortunately. The hex in which the SR spotting round lands becomes the center hex of the activated radio's artillery impact, and it will hit that hex and each adjacent hex. The active player determines the order in which they're attacked, though each may only have a maximum of one such impact roll made against it. I don't know if there's much difference in what the ordering is. There might be. If during spotting you did smoke, instead of a normal artillery barrage, you simply place 7 random smoke markers pulled out of there, 1 into each hex occupied. You don't have to pull any more cards. The SR is removed from the map. If this was not a smoke barrage, then each hex within the impact area that contains at least a unit or a fortification has an impact roll made against it. The impact roll follows the same rules and restrictions as for a fire attack. Again, we haven't gotten there yet. But because radios are not weapons, jammed will not break the radio. The artillery lists of versus fortifications, the artillery box on the track display lists a fortification vulnerability number for each radio force point, fire point. Does it now? This is what I thought it was. On the track display, that's the track display. I'm not seeing it. I'm also not going to worry about it because maybe it'll make sense later. Like, I've got cover ratings. If an artillery impact roll exactly is equal to the fortification vulnerability number associated with that radio's FP. Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. Like, here's a wire. This has it. It's not there. These have cover, but they don't have that number. Oh, it's on the radio. Oh no, it's on artillery. Fortification vulnerability. Ah. So yeah, that will hit any fortification and destroy it, I guess. I assumed it would be on the fortification itself, but it's actually on the radio. Okay. If the artillery impact roll is exactly equal, it destroys it. We're going to stop there because my battery's dead and I'm already getting grumpy. Okay. The next command here is command confusion, which is just basically there's no command on this card. You can't use it. There's no orders on the card. Fire is an order. For a fire order to be announced, at least one of the activated units must have an enemy unit within line of sight and range. No. Ordnance weapons, which have the white bar, must first secure a hit against the targeted hex before making a fire attack roll against it. This is part of the fire order. Generally, the range between the firing ordnance and the target hex is determined, and the targeting roll is made to see if the weapon hits. We'll get to all that soon. Remember, this applies to the radio fire as well, the artillery in the distance. Then a targeting roll is made to see if the weapon hits. If so, a fire attack roll is then made using the weapon's firepower. Some weapons will have smoke rounds. They'll say smoke on the weapon. Instead of making a normal fire attack roll, ordnance is allowed to target any hex within range, even if it doesn't contain enemy units. If it will place a smoke round this way, the active player must declare it before he takes any any die rolls, whatever, which means card draws, of course. You determine the range by counting the number of hexes from the firing unit to the target hex. If this range is greater than the printed range of the weapon, you can't fire. You have to do a targeting roll. So this is different from the firing roll. Now let's see. We don't know targeting rolls until now, right? Yeah, targeting rolls were referred to back with the radio. So you multiply the two dice together rather than adding them. And if this is greater, and it has to be greater than the range in order to hit the targeted hex. So you have a fairly good chance, because sort of the averages are 4s and 5s, and 15, 16 hexes you're gonna be able to hit. However, those die rolls, those rolls are modified by the hindrance. But again, the hindrance isn't likely to make much difference. What's going to make difference is the randomness of the dice, because you get a couple of 1s and you're not going to hit anything. Oh, I'm sorry. The average is going to be around 9. 3.5, 3.5, to be honest. But okay, fire attack. I'm thinking in terms of D10s, because the last couple of games I've played have used D10s. Each piece is activated to fire can take one shot at a hex within both range and line of sight. The earlier thing was the ordnance, but you're going to have to make a fire attack roll with the ordnance too. It's just that applies to both. Either as alone or as part of a fire group, and unless firing smoke, there must be at least one enemy unit in the targeted hex for a direct shot to occur. Units in an intervening hex are not affected by the fire attack. Generally, a unit's firepower modified by the command and any hindrances between itself and the target is added to a fire attack roll, which will be the sum of the dice, to arrive at an attack total. Then each unit in the affected hex adds its morale, modified by command or cover, to a fire defense roll, again, a sum of the dice. So now you've got, 2d6 minus 2d6 as sort of the baseline here. Does mean a lot of draws. If the fire's attack total beats the unit's defense total, the unit breaks, flips over. If the totals are tied, a moving target breaks, but a non-moving target will become suppressed. Any other result will have no effect. So what is a moving target? It's one that's currently under orders or an action that's moving. Fire groups, 2 or more activated units or weapons can fire together by combining into a fire group. Every piece in the fire group must have an unobstructed line of sight to the target hex and be within range of that hex for the roll to be made. Furthermore, if units in a fire group occupy more than one hex, each such hex must be adjacent to at least one other. Which is not exactly what it says in the parentheses, which is so that it forms a chain of adjacent firing units. But I'm taking it as that's an explanation of what they're trying to actually say. Because otherwise, you could have 2 units here and 2 units here, and they could be a firing group. If it weren't for that parenthetical. Weapons with a white band must always fire alone and can never be assigned as part of a fire group. I think you have to be able to get all the units' orders, but they can also fire due to actions, so in a reactive fire. But if it's on your own turn, everybody's got to be like, if you're going to do this, you need a leader. If they're not, if it's an action, I think everybody who can react and play that action can do it as a firing group. Attack hindrance. If the line of sight from any non-ordnance firing piece in the target hex is hindered, that shot's FP is reduced by the largest such hindrance. It's really just a competitive die rolls, i.e. card draws, whatever. Once the final FP is determined, the firing player makes his roll and adds it to his final FP to get an attack total. If his firing roll gets a jammed, all the firing units break, but they still fire. However, and they say, you know, that's life, but those jammed results generally are on low die rolls, which means you might not hit. If you have to make a fire defense roll, they're done one at a time in order desired for each of his units that were in a hex at the moment that a fire attack roll was made against it. All fire defense rolls for one attack must be made before the next attack is announced, even if the same hex will be targeted again. The targeted unit's morale, modified by cover and command, is added to the die roll in order to arrive at a defense value. Now, if we look at the average unit, this has a firepower of 5 and a morale of 7. So we're getting kind of a feel that, like, you're probably not going to break units just by shooting at them. You got to get some luck in there, or combined fire, or whatever. Okay, if the defense total is less than the attack total, the unit breaks. If the defense total is equal, the unit becomes suppressed unless it's currently activated to move, in which case it breaks instead of suppressing. That is move only, which is a specific order. Before it was saying moving or something like that, right? Where was the effect? I don't know where the effect was. Yeah, over here, if the totals are tied, a moving target breaks while a non-moving. Moving there means under the move order, not just the counter is moving. Okay. If the defense total is greater than the attack, nothing happens. They've got a nice whole example here. I skimmed through them. They're okay. Oh, fuck. I just don't want to do this. The reading through the rules part. But I got to keep going. It's really funny. Here, we're going to do what I like to do. Oh, I'm running out of tea, so we'll just do this and then pause. You know, I came up here today, finished whatever I was doing to get myself set to want to play. Everything was sorted already pretty much, but basically set up that first scenario. It wasn't as hard. Like the first time I tried this, and maybe I only tried it once, I was so confused by where where to find what. But here I had read the rules, had the scenario in front of me and everything. I don't know. I think I was just in a horrible, horrible state of mind when I tried to do it. I think I was trying to teach the game without having read the rules, to tell you the truth, because I had played it recently and thought I knew enough and was just too confused. Anyway, you know, I set it up and I'm thinking, okay, I can get through the rules and probably play a scenario of it before I go dancing tomorrow. I don't think that's going to be possible. I'm just, I'm too reticent towards actually doing anything anymore. And, you know, so I slept a good deal. First of all, by the time I got it set up and whatnot, you know, it was like 3 p.m., which meant I had been up for quite a while already. And then, you know, I play my little video game, and then I fuck around, listen to videos and whatnot. It took a couple more naps. I just can't, or at least one more, I think 2, but I just can't seem to want to do anything anymore. Yeah. A part of it, I think, is problems I got after I got punched. My nose doesn't work quite right on that side, and my eye. Anyway, okay, move. When you get a move order, Units can move from hex to hex, expending movement points, using their movement point value on the right side of the thing, and the terrain costs, like in a normal game. You have to have at least as many movement points. You have to have the movement points to enter a hex. At any point during a move, you could transfer a weapon to a friendly unit stacked with it by spending one of your movement points. The receiving unit doesn't have to be activated, but it can't already have a weapon. Movement of one unit has to be completed in its entirety before another activated unit can move. The exception is if they begin in the same hex, they can move together. That probably is a bad idea because they'll attract fire as a group, opportunity fire and whatnot, but I don't know. The inactive player can use op fire, action 33, against the active player, moving units each time they enter a new hex. Well, I don't know about A33, but didn't we already have something, an order that allows you to fire? Like the one I was looking at before? I don't know where it is. There, order action fire. This is an op fire. There aren't any numbers here, so it doesn't tell you what rule it is. And if we look at the order fire, there should be, I don't know. I think this is the opportunity fire, is that order fire card, action fire, but it's written as opportunity fire. This is one of the things that confused me about this. A moving unit can't enter an enemy occupied hex. You do that with the other thing, and I can't remember the words. And again, advance. Maybe they start becoming familiar, but this was one of the hurdles when I was trying to read through the rules, and teach the game quickly. I thought the cards were more or less self-explanatory, but working through the rules was such a pain it made me just put it away. You can't cross a cliff hex side this way. Again, you can do that with the advance. You can't enter or exit a major bridge hex across anything other than the road or trail hex sides, i.e. you can't just climb up the side of the bridge, basically. And you can't exit off the left, right, or the friendly map edge this way. But you can go off the enemy, getting victory points. And something about this style of rules also is really discouraging, which is why I keep walking away. I don't know if it's the layout or what. I don't know. Or that it's just this compendium of actions. Movement etiquette: each time you move a space into a new hex, you should announce your movement points and pause so that the opponent can try to op fire or play some other kind of reaction. However, the inactive player should be prepared to say stop so that they can think and decide to take an action or whatever. Whatever that all means. After each movement point expenditure, the inactive player must play all actions that he wishes before the active player gets to play any of them. That seems like it's a general case, but I don't know. Recover action. When a recover order. Yeah, feels like action to me. When a recover order is announced, that player selects himself as the activated, provided he has at least one broken in or suppressed unit in play, and he has not been activated for recover or rout previously in the same turn. The broken and suppressed units are not activated themselves. The player is, which means those units can do something else. The player taking the recover order removes all his suppressed markers from his friendly units. Then he makes rally rolls for each unit that was broken when the order was announced. If he has more than one broken unit, he chooses the order. There's a rally roll if it's less than the unit's morale. And I think their morale goes up when they're broken. Yeah, like this was a 6, it goes up to a 7, making it easier to rally and harder to be destroyed. Presumably they're like cowering and stuff. If the roll is equal to its current morale, it becomes suppressed and remains broken. If the roll is greater than the current morale, there's no effect and the unit remains broken. This is very strange. It only becomes suppressed on the equal, which makes the actual number kind of weird. So like this goes at a 7, so it's relatively likely it's going to become suppressed, like more likely than any other number. Route. When a route order is announced, the player selects a player to be activated. It can be himself or his opponent, provided the chosen player has at least one broken unit in play and that player has not been activated for recovery or route previously in the same turn. So you can route someone before they get a chance to recover and prevent them. The broken units themselves are not activated. The active player, the one that announced the order, makes a roll for each. And it's important who makes the roll because it's their deck, not just because of the selection of cards. We're going to assume that's mostly random, that nobody's going to have a count of cards and have a really good idea. But because their deck is being worn out, so, time might pass off their deck or whatever. If the chosen unit player has more than one broken unit, the active player chooses the order. If you roll less than morale, there's no effect and the unit stays. If you get equal, you get a suppression. If not already, if you're greater than current morale, you have to retreat a number of hexes equal to the distance. Rules for retreating are part of this. When a route roll is greater than the broken unit's morale, it must retreat a number of hexes equal to the distance. It retreats is equal to the difference, a player retreats his own units even if he's not the one who played the route on himself. I don't know why you would, but maybe if you really want to get out of a hex and it's all you can do. Each hex retreated into must be closer to the controlling player's board edge than the one it just left. Retreats... I'm sorry. We got a capital here, so I think we're starting a sentence. Terms in the game are all capitalized. I guess that's a thing you can do, but it definitely breaks up, if you're going to write in paragraphs and whatnot. Each hex retreated into must be closer than the one it just left. In other words, there must be fewer intervening hexes. But yeah, okay, I didn't need to read that. If already adjacent to its friendly board edge, the unit is eliminated. It retreats off the map and becomes victory points and whatever for the enemy. Terrain, MPs, movement points are not counted during retreat. It's just hexes. Opportunity fire is not permitted. I think it's only permitted against a move action. See, yeah, here again, it's moving units. Yeah. By that, they mean under a move action. Even though it's not capitalized, is it? No, it's not. And it really should be. Anyway. Although it's part of move action there. But elsewhere where it is, it's also... Okay, wire. A retreat is allowed into and out of wire without having to stop. Mines attack retreating units normally, both when they enter and or leave the hex with the mines. A retreating unit is eliminated if it's forced to retreat off the board edge, friendly board edge, into an enemy-occupied hex. It surrenders, into an impassable hex, or over a cliff. All right, we're stopping there. Now we get to the actions, which are going to feel a lot like orders, but... they work differently. You can use them during the opponent's turn and all kind of stuff like that. And reading through this compendium, you know, it's a very, very, to me, it's just not a good way to get the information across. It might be perfectly fine during play, though. I suspect it will be great for lookup, but it's not good for learning for me. Just have to keep plugging away a little bit at a time. I can only handle a little bit, but all right. Actions. In general, they can be announced by either player at any time via a fate card played from the hand, as long as the action's conditions or a prerequisite is met. Multiple actions can be conducted in response to a single game situation. If both players wish to perform one or more actions, including op fire, at the same time, the inactive player must perform all of his before the active. Like I said, I thought that was a general rule, and then it was called out in a specific place. That's just weird, because the fact that it was called out makes me think it should be the opposite. Anyway. With the sole exception of op fire, actions that affect units do not activate those units like an order would. Conversely, a unit that's already been activated by an order or op fire action can be the target of any number of non-op fire actions. What does it mean to activate a unit? It means it can't do anything else in that player turn, I think. So it doesn't mean a hell of a lot for the inactive player, although he can't continue to fire. Okay, ambush. This is the first action. It can be played before dice are rolled during a melee. The inactive player must play all ambushes he wishes. The effect is the opponent has to select one of his units participating in the melee and break it. Both sides can do this, so you can attack with an ambush. And that makes perfect sense. Assault fire. Assault fire may only be played if at least one unit currently activated to move, or its weapon, has both a boxed firepower and an enemy unit within its current range and line of sight at which to shoot. Now this is movement, not the thing you'd think would go with assault fire, which is, I think, called assault. No, advance is what I was thinking. Okay. Each assault fire action allows a single fire action to be made, a fire attack to be made. The attack can be from a fire group using any or all moving units and or their weapons that have boxed firepower. So here's a reason why boxed firepower is important. The attack otherwise adheres to all rules and restrictions pertaining to a regular fire attack. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to look up each of these based on the cards I have in my hand all the time. There's going to be quite a bit of lookup, I think, until you get really familiar with the system. And that's a price to the system, really. Because it's kind of not in the rules, and I don't think these requirements are on the cards either. We'll see, maybe they are. Bore sighting. Bore sighting may only be played by the scenario defender, never an attacker or recon player, and only just prior to making a fire attack roll involving firing a weapon with a printed FP of at least 5. Before modifications, it gives them +2 fire. Command confusion. This card cannot be played for an action. I don't know if these are double cards where command confusion gets rid of your order as well as your action, or if it's just you don't have an action on this card. Anyway. Concealment can only be played, I'm assuming it's the other way around, because they say, hope you have a decent order on this card. So I assume it's going to always have one of the two. Concealment may only be played just prior to the player making a defense roll, determine the cover in the targeted hex, and reduce the fire attack total by that amount. If the firing player is using spray fire, the cover of either one of the targeted hexes may be used. All cover modifications, such as for roads or mortar attacking units in foxholes, are taken into consideration before reducing. Concealment is used after the targeted player knows the attack total. Now, Cover already, I think, is factored. Again, got to look everything up in this game to make any thoughts about it in the fire defense roll. Yeah. And that does not get us to the concealment here. We look at this. Modified by both cover T78. So the defender is getting his cover already on his die roll, and now he's getting a second load of it against the attacker's total. I believe the attacker makes his roll first. So it's played before the defender gets to make his roll. And all that timing issue, again, going to have to be looking that stuff up a lot. Unless it's all on the card, and I highly doubt it is. Crossfire may only be played just prior to the player making a fire attack roll and only when firing at one or more moving 021. The order for move. This is nice. This tells you when you can do it. I don't know that it's always that explicit. I don't think it was. Units. It increases the fire attack by +2. Demolitions can only be played when the opponent discards one or more cards due to passing. You eliminate a fortification in any hex containing a friendly unit. So you have to have a unit up there to destroy an enemy fortification. You have to have a unit there to destroy one of your own, whatever. Dig-in may only be played at the end of a game time advancement. Place foxholes into a hex containing a friendly unit. The hex cannot be water and can't already have a blaze or a fortification. Fire, opportunity fire, prerequisite. A fire action. See, it's parenthesized because it's not the actual action. It's just telling you what it is. A fire action may only be played during an opponent's move order and only just after the expenditure of one or more movement points as a moving unit enters a new hex. This type of fire is reactionary, is termed op fire. We saw, and I think these are the only cards there are, but we'll see, that the fire order and fire action were on the same card and kind of combined, and there was another action on that card. Is it the top one, or did I? Yeah, I didn't. I'd have to dig through again. Op fire procedure. Generally, when the active player is performing a move order, he should count aloud. Each time such an expenditure is made, the inactive player has an option to say, wait. Anyway, play of a fire action from his hand and activate one or more units to fire at that hex, exactly as if he were activating units for a fire order, and or, now, I think the only way you can get more than one unit is through a commander then, because it says exactly the same way as if he were activating units for a fire order. Make one fire attack against that hex with any of his units that were activated for op fire at any point during the same move order. So if you had op fire previously in the same move order, not just same turn, same move order, you get to continue firing at it, which is, once you start hitting something, it ought to stop for the danger that you have more of these cards. After any such fire attack is made or the opportunity to do so is declined, never mind, keep moving, the active player may continue with his move order. Op-fire exceptions. Units and their weapons that are activated for op-fire follow all normal rules for a fire order with three important exceptions. We'll see. An ordnance weapon cannot utilize opportunity fire. These are the things with the white stripe on them, things like mortars and stuff. They're not limited to only firing once, so remain activated and eligible to fire at moving targets for the entirety of that move order only. Okay? You just have to remember, I guess. No more than one fire attack may be made by the inactive player per movement point expended by the active player, so you can't just keep shooting at that same hex. All right, what are we getting here? We're not going to worry about events, but I do want to read through all the actions. I think it says Later on, they're going to tell me not to look at stuff, and that's when I stop. Hand grenades. Hand grenades may only be played just prior to an attacker making a fire attack roll, and only if at least one piece is firing at an adjacent hex, and it increases the fire attack's firepower by 2. Hidden. Name. There are 5 hidden actions which may be played by the scenario defender. Never attack or recon. We're not going to be playing with a defender in the first scenario. The defender kind of holds the territory, so they have it. Hidden entrenchments may only be played just prior to the scenario defender making a defense roll. The hex affected by the attack cannot be a building or water, nor already contain a fortification of any type. You get a foxhole. Hidden mines can only be played by the scenario defender just after one or more units move or advance into a hex. The hex can't be water or contain a fortification of any type. You put a mine into that hex. The defender then makes a mine attack against each of those moving, advancing units. Again, you probably don't want to move as a stack. Hidden pillbox. This may only be played just prior to the scenario defender making a defense roll for an attack against an objective hex, and only if the pillbox is not already in play. I guess there's only one. The targeted hex cannot be water terrain nor already contain a fortification. Place that marker into... See, these say place a foxhole, place a mines. This says place the pillbox into that hex. Hidden unit. A hidden unit can only be played when the opponent discards one or more cards due to passing. This doesn't include involuntary discards. The scenario defender performs the following steps. Make a roll on the nation's support table. I don't know where this is. It's got to be. Huh. Damned if I know where that is. Well, hell. Okay. Do we have a... We have this. It doesn't give me any kind of link. I don't know where the fuck this is. Order of battle. I think this is telling you which counters there are, but I'm not sure. I don't know what this is doing. But there's also a support table here, and you make a die roll and do stuff off that. I've got to swap batteries yet again, but okay. Nation's support table. So I roll some dice. From the column matching the roll, select one non-radio item that is available for that scenario's year. Now, people are items. For the year, I've got them listed here. And presumably the total number that are available. But I'm not sure because that only says 1, which seems like a pretty... There are a lot of rifle squads in the game. Again, I don't know. This may have something to do with the random scenario generation or something. I don't know. Select one non-radio item that is available to the scenario's year. Place the selected unit along with its weapon, if any. So we'll have here like weapon team with light machine gun. So an item could be 2 items, sort of, kind of. Into any hex that is within its original setup area and contains no units of either side and has a cover of at least 1. Finally, there's hidden wire. Hidden wire can only be played by the scenario defender. Now all of these are only scenario defender, right? Yeah, see, here it says only by the scenario defender. Strangely enough, oh no, it does tell. Okay. They repeat it each time. Just after one or more units move or advance, not retreat into a hex. That hex cannot be water terrain not already nor already containing a fortification of any type. You get a wire marker in it. We don't know what those do, but we can look up. They're here. They're also in the rules. I'm going to break there because I got 2 batteries charging. My T's running low, and my tolerance for reading is pretty much gone. Back to the actions. Light wounds can only be played the instant that a friendly squad would break. You lose a victory point, then instead of that squad breaking or being eliminated due to being broken already, put it back in the counter mix, retrieving a team from the counter mix of the same quality as that player's OB, either green line or elite, and placing it into the hex from which the squad was taken. This, I guess you look in here? I don't know. I just don't know what this is. Like, this tells me I don't understand. Like, I can obviously take the same unit, I guess, but quality, like, is just that, right? I'm missing something and don't get it. Let's see. Yeah, see, this just doesn't make sense. If the squad was broken when it was removed, the replacement team comes into play broken. If there was a weapon support or veteran marker, the team retains it. Like, okay, I got you. Here's what it is. The counters. So here I have an elite. This is an elite team. It's going to be a team of the quality of the unit. And they'll have different values, I guess. That's the key thing is team. I had to understand what the counters looked like. And I did remember I had like a militia. Which, like, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, I've got elite, line, and green. I've also got militia. There's line, there's green. I guess that's all there is. That the militia isn't really that. I don't know. But I do know that I can create teams that way. Okay. So what happens is that the unit is reduced and is sort of half broken by this. Well, not half broken. I don't know. Instead of it breaking or being destroyed, you replace it. If it was already broken, the team is still broken. So you can avoid what would destroy or weaken the whole squad and keep a team in the original quality. I don't know what, I can see reasons you might do that, but marksmanship can be only played just prior to making a fire attack roll. The attack has to include a firing squad or team of the indicated nationality. I mean, the cards are by nationalities, so what's up? I don't know. I mean, maybe the German has like marksmanship US in it or something like that, because this is an action. Although that wouldn't make a lot of sense either. I don't get it. No quarter. Maybe there are scenarios where you're using... See, there's Italian units and German units. You could conceivably have both of them in the same battle. You only have Americans. You don't have other nationalities here, but this might be a rule for some kind of weird mixed deck thing. I don't know. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, at the scale of the game, you're not really looking at any kind of formations that would be working together necessarily. So, like, you know, if it's an American company or whatever, I mean, you're not even dealing with a whole company, but it's above squad. If it's an American platoon or whatever that you're part of, that's the scenario. You wouldn't have, you know, like American and French troops present unless it was a really weird situation. But yeah, I don't know. No quarter can only be played at the conclusion of a melee by a German player if the opponent is playing Russian, or by a Russian, regardless of the opponent's nationality. No quarter can only be played if the player had at least one unit survive the melee, and the player just gets 2 victory points. Since you survived the melee, you wiped the other guy out. Smoke grenades can only be used by a unit with boxed movement and must be played while that unit is activated. To move, select one smoke marker at random and place it in or adjacent to that unit's hex, providing that the hex is not water nor has a blaze. Spray fire. Spray fire can only be played just prior to making a fire attack. All firing pieces must have boxed range. The 2 targeted hexes must be within range of all firing pieces, adjacent to one another, and both have to contain an enemy unit. For obstacles and hindrances, LOS must be checked from all firing pieces to both of the hexes. Spray fire is not cumulative. It reads 2 hexes, not an additional hex. The fire attack will affect both targeted hexes simultaneously. Only one fire attack roll is made, although all units in both hexes must make fire defense rolls based on the total. Sustained fire may only be played just prior to making a fire attack roll in which at least one mortar or MG is firing. I mean, if this isn't on the fucking cards, some of it is, but like sustained fire, yeah, it says mortar or machine gun. I mean, I think the cards largely tell you. I might have, if it's not on the cards, there's no way I'm going to be able to look it all up. Now, I don't remember the game being that hard to play. I remember maybe a couple of times when I had to ask a question, you know, but yeah. Increase the fire attack by +2, but if the fire attack roll ends up doubles, one firing mortar or machine gun must break, the firing player's choice. Then we come to a bunch of events, and these are just, you know, they're only going to be triggered at random. They're basically go look it up when it happens. I'm not going to worry about them. The general rules, they're never played from the hand. They occur via specific rolls. We're just not going to worry about them until they throw into play. They all, some of these generate stuff. Here, they say you only need to read the 4 sections that follow for types, movement, cover, and line of sight. Types, movement, line of sight. Line of sight. I think we kind of have to go through some of these. Every hex on the map is defined by the terrain type. Terrain types are shown on the terrain chart with green backgrounds. I've got all of these here. I had a terrain chart somewhere. Okay, so these are the base types. And I don't know what these are. I think these are hex-side terrains and special things. The type is the one that's predominant within it, woods, building, or brush, for example. Some hexsides contain terrain that can affect fire or movement, such as cliff, fence, wall, blah, blah, blah. Terrain types are shown on the terrain chart with green backgrounds. Terrain features are shown with tan and will generally only modify the terrain type they share the hex with. Terrain chart lists the terrain in hierarchical order. If it contains two different types, the one shown closest to the top takes precedence. This is kind of weird because it's contradictory in my mind. So it says a hex's terrain type is the one that is predominant within it, be it woods, building, or brush. Okay. But they also say the hierarchical order, if it contains two different terrain types, the one shown closest. Now, very obviously, clear is not like the predominant terrain type. And you can kind of look and say, okay, well, you could try to make arguments that this hex has got almost half the area or something along those lines, but it's clearly not what they mean. So, that might be the only reason for this. Like, I'm looking here, and this is a feature, it's not a type. But a bridge I don't know. We'd have to see the individual situations. But what we don't see is like a building with some wood sticking out or anything like that. So I don't think we're going to have this problem, but whatever. Each terrain has a movement point cost, which is what it costs if you're doing a move action. Or, not action, order. Each terrain lists a cover and a whole number, which may be negative. At all times and for all purposes, cover modifies the morale of every unit in the same hex. Cover is never cumulative, however, so you choose only one. There's features. Each terrain lists whether it's an obstacle, hindrance, or clear. Obstacles block same level line of sight. They usually create one blind hex to a higher level observer. If you happen to be up on a hill, like trees, right behind the trees, that hex you can't see through, but then you'd be able to see a later hex. It doesn't worry about trying to position the halfway point or anything like that. Like games like Terrible Swift Sword, for example, was the first one that I had to deal with that had that, I think. There might have been others, but I probably wasn't too concerned with, well, actually Stonewall, but what are we at here? Hindrance reduces the fire points of same level fire attacks traced through them without that one hex shadow. And clear terrain has no effect. See line of sight rules for more detail. Line of sight rules are rules 10. We're in 79 now. I think we've read through this. I don't remember. And then we have specifics here. So, for example, in this battle, we've got orchard, which looks a lot like brush. And I don't think... Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. Strangely, orchard and brush are in the same here. Oh, they have different values, yeah. I don't know why they're in slices the way they are. I guess just to make it easier to read or something, I don't know. Like, everything's actually in green. It's just there's barriers of white. Okay, no problem. Hills are important, though. We're going to skip through some of these. The standard buff-colored open ground is said to be at level 0 or ground level. Everything in this scenario is. Hills can be thought of as being at levels 1 tan, 2 light brown, or 3 medium brown. And we have those spelled out here. Or 4 dark brown. A unit on a hill above any terrain occupying in either a ground level... What? Therefore, a unit on a hill above any terrain is above any terrain, occupying either a ground level hex or a hill hex of lower level. A hill hex functions exactly like any other ground level hex except as modified. If you're moving uphill, you have to pay an extra movement point. Fire attack takes a -1 fire point if the target hex is at a higher elevation than any one firing piece if you're doing combined fire. Conversely, a fire attack gains +1 FP at a lower elevation than any one firing piece. I'm not sure how much I believe that firing downhill gives you that big an advantage. In fact, sometimes it can be a real disadvantage, like if you're on a cliff or something, but we won't worry too much about that, I guess. There is a cliff here. Doesn't seem to impact that difference. Yeah, my poor nose. Got like a little, what feels like it might be a bone splinter or something on one side. And like, I don't know, it wasn't bleeding, it doesn't look broken or anything. There's just like this little thing. And my sinuses are fucked up because of it. Okay. Hills in line of sight, military crest line. A hex showing more than one level is termed a crest hex. We can't look at a picture of that. I'm assuming it'll have 2 different color types in it. Doesn't sound like a crest, but the level at which a crest hex's center dot lies is its actual level. In every crest hex, the physical edge of the higher level hill is termed the crest line. A unit may only trace a line of sight into the initial crest hex of each elevation above it. Likewise, which is to say you can't go up and down the hill. You can't see up and then down the hill and fire through it, essentially. Likewise, a unit on a hill may trace a line of sight to a hex at a lower elevation only if that LOS never passes through a crest line of equal or greater height in an intervening hex. Hills as obstacles. A hill itself blocks line of sight traced between any 2 hexes of lower elevation. Hills and obstacles. An LOS to or from a hill is blocked only if it clearly touches any part of a physical depiction of an obstacle at the same or higher elevation as the hill hex. In other words, the line of sight to or from a hill hex is not blocked by obstacles that lie at a lower elevation, with one caveat, which is the blind hex. A blaze, however, always blocks line of sight because it's just this like column of fire. Yeah. Higher than any trees or whatever. I don't know. A unit on a hill can see into a lower level woods or building hex as normal, but cannot see into the next hex beyond it if that next hex is also at or lower than the woods or building hex's elevation. It's just a little blind zone. Hills, any map board hindrances terrain that is at a lower level does not hinder a line of sight to or from a hill hex. A hindrance on a hill does hinder a line of sight between 2 other hill hexes at the same level as the hindrance. A smoke always hinders LOS because, again, it's just a column, which makes more sense to me. And it may be that the blaze is producing a ton of smoke, too. I don't know, because smoke's only a hindrance. Roads and railways seem kind of important here. Roads, if traveling along the road depiction. Otherwise, it costs 1. Otherwise, it depends on the terrain in the hex. You also gain 1 movement point as long as you entered a hex containing a road at any point during a move order. Cover, none. However, the cover of any other fortification or terrain within a hex containing a road is decreased by 1. If the LOS proceeds directly along the road depiction, it clears the line of sight, so you can shoot down the road. There aren't trees right there. Moke, streams, trails, walls, nothing too exciting there. Fortifications. Let's peek at the general rules for these. There's 6 fortifications in the game. Foxholes, trenches, mines, wire, bunker, and pillbox. Yes, I'm fortified in a mine field. Fortifications are normally brought into play at the beginning of a scenario, though some can enter due to events or whatever, actions. Removal, they can normally only be eliminated via various events, the demolitions action, or an artillery impact roll. It gives the rules references rather nicely. Stacking, no more than one fortification may ever occupy a single hex. The first fortification placed is the only one that will be there. And then we have all the different types. Mines are going to attack units when they move in or out of hexes, wire and fire attacks. You can't fire if you're stuck in the wire. You lose your movement points when you move into wire. It's nasty stuff. We do have a developer, which is a nice thing. I always like to check that when I just see it. So technically we're ready to start. Everything's a blur because it was this compendium of stuff. It's like, you know, trying to learn D&D by reading the monster manual or something like that. But, you know, it is what it is. It doesn't work very well for me, but it's what has to be done, the same way that like coin games have to have this player aid that you have to zone out on to start to understand the game, or just fiddle around and play with. I'm hoping fiddle around and play with is good enough because that's how the game is designed. That's how the rules are designed, but also I'm just not going to be able to memorize everything. I got to reshuffle all these. We'll send this up.